Why aren't companies drilling? Why are we not doing more for some of the 9,000 leases right now here in the United States when it comes to oil production?
Well, first of all, just because you have a federal lease doesn't mean once you get it, there's a reason, there's a term on it. You have to do the geology, geography, you have to do the seismic, you have to determine, you have to line up the entire spacing unit. I think that's one of the fallacies that exists here. You go buy a 200-acre federal lease in North Dakota, that doesn't mean you can even drill a well on that 200 acres. The process takes significantly more time than that. And I can just use North Dakota as an example. You can't really develop that oil and gas resource if you don't have the gas capture resources available, because we have, I think rightfully so, curtailed a lot of flaring and all of those issues. But the second part of it is raising capital expenditures on this gets a little hard when the government is not giving permits for these things that are moving all the way through. So it's like we've dealt ourselves from the bottom of the deck the worst hand possible to deal with this crisis.
Congressman, explain it for our audience here, because I know of some of the changes, because people say, look, you got to get this regulation. That's what's preventing some of this for these oil companies to go out and do it. I think a majority of us want to be done, given the world events here. Yeah. I mean, I know the changes as far as no other leases going on public lands. I mean, what else is there? People pointing out Keystone Pipeline, which baffles me. What else has changed in this administration, I guess, besides rhetoric?
Well, first of all, there's 5 permits at FERC right now for natural gas infrastructure that the career people at FERC will 10 months ago that are being held up by the political people. That's the second thing. Second of all, FERC took a 3-2 vote last week that said for climate mitigation, which had already started, we're mitigating to put a pipeline in the ground, which is how much carbon do you burn putting the pipeline in the ground, and how much carbon do you burn from that cut pipeline? Well, their 3-2 decision last week said not only are we going to ask for a mitigation plan on that, but we're going to ask for a mitigation plan on all the carbon expended upstream and downstream, which means if you were putting in the pipeline, you have to mitigate the carbon of the oil well and the SUV. And just to be frank, if that stays in place and is enforced in any particular way, we are going to lose 85 to 90% of our infrastructure for those types of projects in the U.S. So there's a real policy decisions that are in every single day.
Right. One of and I touched just a little bit on this in the question I just asked you, but we keep hearing, and I keep getting it from listeners here, Tyler, they got to fire up Keystone. They got to get Keystone XL pipeline. What's the reasoning behind it, if not just politics, Congressman?
Well, and so I'm the guy who introduced the Keystone bill, and you haven't heard that from me. And one of my frustrations out here with both sides is acting like we could build the Keystone. There's only one company in the world who can build the Keystone, and they've divested themselves of those assets over a year ago. Other permits have expired. The Keystone XL is a good indicator because it's a little over 1-to-1, but it's a 1-to-1 offset for Russian heavy crude, because what we were taking from our allies in Canada was heavy crude. So it's an important part of it, and it is one of the factors that is in place for why we're in a little bit of this mess right now. But I don't think we could pass the bill I introduced a year ago tomorrow, and it's still not going to have the Keystone XL built. That's just the truth.
Right. Yeah, that's one thing that I was talking about just last week. I think the last 2 weeks have been quite jumbled together as far as, look, even if as we rightfully did finally, and I was critical of the administration taking so long to ban import of Russian oil. Well, let's say, okay, that's done. Now, we can't just go out and flip the switch and say, look, we've got what is all necessary infrastructure-wise to keep gas prices down. So with that, the infrastructure is not there. What can be done for those that are out at the pump paying to fill up their truck?
Well, one thing is in the Biden State of the Union is, or President Biden's State of the Union about releasing some of our strategic oil reserves. There just wasn't that much cushion in the market to start, Tyler. And there are enough worldwide reserves that if people got, you could probably give a cushion that would have at least some. I don't know how significant it would be, and it would be short-term relief. But there's essentially, I would say it's like a Venn diagram. There's 3 different issues. There's production, there's supply, and there's capacity. And if we can increase drilling onshore, that will drive costs down. It's a futures market. That's how it works. There's a supply issue, particularly with the type of oil that we get from Russia, which is heavy crude. We can produce all the oil in the Bakken we want, but it's not going to go to the heavy crude refineries in the Gulf, which makes things like marine fuel and all of those issues And then there's the capacity issue, which is a longer-term conversation, and that's infrastructure as far as pipelines. I just talked about FERC. You know what it is? It's some of our allies building LNG tankers. It costs $200 million to build an LNG tanker in South Korea. It costs $700 million in the United States. They're the same tanker. They're the same insured. We have to start having those conversations. But I'm just going to be frank with you. We're not building it. It takes 3 years to build one tanker. That's not going to solve a problem overnight.
Right. One of the things that's been coming out, Congressman, on the flip side of this, saying, look, this is a prime example of why we got to find alternatives to the reliance that we have on fossil fuels. Not only so it's stop lining people like Putin's pockets, but also when we have this volatility because of that. The landscape on watching, I mean, the Green New Deal's not going anywhere. But what are you, coming from North Dakota with the fossil fuels that we have, what are you open to as far as alternative energy?
First thing I think we should do is permitting and litigation reform, because it doesn't matter if you listen, they're trying to get a hydro line on the East Coast. They're on their fourth state because nobody wants it. And the reason is because utilitarian infrastructure is not really popular. And if you want to stop that type of infrastructure, like if you're talking about this prairie chicken, you don't care what bifurcates the habitat. You don't care if it's a natural gas pipeline or a transmission line from a wind turbine, right? So one of the things that I think we should, hopefully reasonable people on both sides of this argument can say, one of the things that the U.S. has to get significantly better at is getting infrastructure put into the ground in a reasonable amount of time, particularly when you're doing federal permitting and those types of issues, because that's what slows everything down. Like I said, I don't care if it's a transmission line from a wind farm or if it's a natural gas pipeline. That should be one way where we can do that. And by the way, it should be important to everybody who's pushing on the renewable side too, because every estimate they have, we need 2.5 times more transmission infrastructure for intermittent power than we have now. And if you can't get that stuff in the ground inside of a decade, it's hard to see how this works forward. So I think that's one way we should be able to find bipartisan support.
Congressman, I got questions coming into our text club. I'm going to throw a couple your way that's related to the conversation we have now. Then we're going to take a quick pause and talk about just foreign policy here. But Tyler, can you ask Congressman Armstrong what checks and balances do they have on oil companies just raising prices to gouge comes in?
Well, first of all, if you're talking about oil companies raising prices, the check and balance is simple. It's a futures market. They don't set the price of oil. That is just the reality. I mean, when oil was trading at negative $26 a barrel, it was trading at negative 26 because it's a futures market. WTI is not up, and the price of a barrel of oil is not up because anybody's gouging it. It's because it's in the futures market and it's an internationally traded commodity. So that argument doesn't really make any sense to anybody who understands how the economics of oil play across the country and across the world.
Well, to that point, I'm curious because a lot of people from, quite frankly, your side of the aisle are saying, well, look, this price hike is because of what Joe Biden's done. Explain that to me. If this is a global traded, I mean, I think today it was down 10%, then how are we putting this, what seems to be squarely on this administration?
Well, first of all, the minute peacekeeping tanks rolled into a country that wasn't in conflict, the price of oil was going to go up, particularly if Russia was involved with that. So anybody who says that's not true is just not paying attention, and I don't care what letter they have behind their last name. I think the real argument is the $1.26 price in gas that has gone up prior to this thing going on, and that obviously has a lot to do with our domestic oil policy and very things I'm saying, infrastructure projects being abandoned, chasing off private capital because you don't believe you can get a permit to put those things in place, 5 permits sitting at FERC, so we can't deploy these things. And I think that those policies of the Biden administration have definitely led to increased energy costs.
One of the things okay, I'll add one more question, then we'll take a quick pause. You talked about capital. I mean, the last couple of years, now with the pandemic, obviously that's the other factor here, and just the supply, there wasn't as much demand. You know, there was a lot of federal dollars that went out there, some of that towards oil companies. They've had profits, billions of dollars. Is the capital not there for them to do some of these projects?
Well, so one of the things that we have to, that we get caught up in this a lot is that we think it's a homogeneous industry. There are oil companies that have profits, but there's still not that many of them drilling in shale rock. Like the increased production probably comes in the Permian, and it definitely comes in the Permian and the Powder River before it comes in the Bakken. And there's a lot of different reasons for that. Workforce being one, all of those different issues, but it's the same companies. But when you're talking capital investment for large multi-scale pipeline projects, that capital it's very difficult to raise it. It's very difficult to invest it. And it's much harder to do it when you can't get a permit. That Duke and Dominion abandoned their pipeline project in Virginia, and they had 9 different lawsuits. They never lost one, and they still abandoned the project. They just couldn't keep it going anymore.
Congressman, got a little bit more time with me. I know how crazy things are out there, but I just got to get to a commercial break.
Yeah, absolutely.
Very good. Congressman Kelly Armstrong right here in North Dakota. I got to get to this break. A lot of messages coming in. I want to talk about the foreign policy. What's line, if any, if it's crossed, do we start action? That's going to be a question that I ask Congressman Kelly Armstrong when we come back right after this. Congressman, I know this is a NATO situation as far as what we're watching in Ukraine, but boy, watching as, for example, today, Russian missiles striking a maternity hospital. I'm just curious, are you hearing any rumbling out from your colleagues, or do you have any insight as to, for you, what's the line, if any, that, look, if Russia crosses this, we can't just sit back and watch anymore? I'm just curious, what are you hearing out in Washington?
Well, the easiest one is invoking Article 5 of the NATO of our NATO agreement. If they strike our NATO allies, that's the place where I think actually is the red line that not just us, but a lot of people would cross. But the rest of it is, you're watching this. And Tyler, you come out to D.C. with the background you have. Mine obviously wasn't in foreign policy, so I've learned a lot over the last 3 years. But the answer is you listen to smart people on both sides of the aisle, and people with stars on their shoulders, and people who understand this stuff, and you take the best advice you can get before you make those kind of decisions. Because the reality is if the United States is shooting down a Russian jet, we are, if not in World War III, not far off from it. And that's so Vice President Harris is over there right now, and we have a deal with Poland and supplying jets and fighters and all of this. And I hope she succeeds, because this is a really big issue, and this should be one of those issues where we're not Democrat and Republican, because anybody who's watching anything coming out of this stuff has to be absolutely horrified, but also has to recognize the fact that World War III is something that I don't think people should be talking about flippantly.
Yeah. Congressman, grade your perspective of this administration's handling of this crisis.
So early on, I don't think they did a very good job at all. I think keeping the NATO allies together right now and how they're doing some of those things, I think giving away the real-time intelligence leading up to this was a really smart move. This is, moving forward, keeping our NATO allies with as much pressure on Russia as possible is important. So they've done some things well. I wish they would have done some things better. And again, like I said, this is one of those areas, partisanship aside, I hope they succeed, because I think the world needs us to.
Yeah, Congressman, I'm out of time here. I always appreciate it checking in. Let's catch up again next month, all right?
One second, because I'm going to tell you what I'm doing right now. I just snuck a North Dakota FFA group onto the floor or into the Capitol, because we're still not allowed to give tours yet, but they don't tell me no. So I've got a bunch of North Dakotans walking around the Capitol right now.
Hey, I got to admire that. FFA for life, man. I don't know if you were out in Dickinson, but I know up in Leeds we had FFA. Good time. Good job. All right.
All right, Tyler. Have a good weekend.
Yeah, you take care. Congressman Kelly Armstrong on Washington. FFA students out there. What'd you hear? What'd you like? What didn't you like? You can let me know at the iConsultants of North Dakota Text Club, 35270. You can also call the Laney studio line, which I do see we've got Brian there. Brian, if I came to you right now, I don't have enough time. I'll try to after our KFGO News if you hang on. Rusty Halverson down in New Orleans will give us an update. Also, Bill Werner, Capitol correspondent from Minnesota News Network, coming up right after this. I'm Tyler Axett. Stick around.
News and weather this hour brought to you by Dean's Bulk Service and C-Store in Barnesville, on the corners of highways 9 and 34. Large enough to serve you, small enough to know you.
Fargo-Moorhead, partly sunny. It's 13. I'm Paul Juergens. Carson Wentz is heading to the NFC East. The Indianapolis Colts have struck a deal to trade the Bismarck native and NDSU star to the Washington Commanders in exchange for draft picks. He had a disappointing second half of the 2021 season with the Colts. Wentz will now head to a division rival of his first NFL team, the Philadelphia Eagles. Xcel Energy has agreed to pay a $4,500 fine for missing the deadline for replacing the wind turbine lights at the Courtney Wind Farm north of Jamestown. The deadline to replace the existing blinking red lights with a radar-based aircraft detection lighting system was the end of December. Xcel had asked for an extension in mid-December, but the Public Service Commission denied it. Commission Chairman Julie Fedorchik.
The 63 tower beacon / lights were not responding to commands from its ADLS. They had the technology installed, but it wasn't functioning effectively.
Commissioner Randy Chrisman says he thinks the fine should have been higher. There are two other wind farms, Sunflower and Bison, that have not yet complied with the new lighting system. 12, this is KFGO News. "12 degrees, this is KFGO News. A recommendation to raise pay for substitute teachers in the Fargo School District failed in a 6-2 vote. The district, like others, continues to have a difficult time finding substitutes on a daily basis. Board member David Paulson introduced the motion that would increase daily pay to $200 for substitutes at elementary schools and $175 for middle and high school substitutes, as not only a way to recruit more substitute teachers but also retain them. He called it an experiment.
If we continue to pay our substitute teachers $112 a day, in essence, what we are telling those people is that the job they are doing for us is no more important than the job of flipping burgers, because they're getting the same amount of pay. I consider our substitute teachers grossly underpaid.
More than a year after President Biden revoked the federal permit for the contentious Keystone XL oil pipeline, lawyers for the project are asking South Dakota to consider nearly all activities in the state officially ended. Parent company TC Energy has filed a request with the state's Public Utilities Commission, asking the three-member panel to release a $15 million road bond that regulators required as part of the 2010 decision granting the South Dakota permit. Republican governor candidate Scott Jensen has named former Viking and Baltimore Ravens center Matt Burke as his running mate. Jensen made the announcement at a rally in Eagan. He is the first candidate to announce a running mate in the large field of Republicans hoping to defeat Governor Walz. Burke has opposed same-sex marriage, abortion rights, and the Walz administration's response to COVID-19. Burke spent a decade with the Vikings before joining the Ravens in 2009. Fargo-Moorhead, partly to mostly cloudy this afternoon. We might see some flurries, and right around 14 for the afternoon high. Cold and clear overnight, 11 below. Tomorrow, meteorologist Tom Szymanski is expecting some sunshine in the morning, then increasing clouds and blowing snow in open areas by afternoon, 16. 9 for the high on Friday, partly to mostly cloudy. Saturday, about 22, partly to mostly cloudy, maybe some light snow late in the day. Sunny, or at least partly sunny Sunday, and 32. Paul Juergens, News Radio KFGO.
Rusty Halverson calling in from New Orleans. Commodity Classic going on. Rusty, welcome.
Well, hello from New Orleans.
How many beads have been thrown your way?
Not many. There's some hanging from the street lights, but not many.
You're not bringing back any beads that are yellow, purple, or green? Okay. Disappointed, but you still got time. You charming man, you.
Yeah, it's just getting started. They're setting up the trade show today, Tyler, and there's lots of grower meetings that are going on. I'm outside a restaurant across from the convention center right now called Mulat's, where some of us farm broadcasters are being hosted by Helena Chemical. And so we're learning about their products and having some catfish bites. And so I stepped outside. It's quite loud in there, to be honest with you.
I could about imagine. Explain the catfish bites to me.
Well, small little catfish bites. They almost look like little chicken tenders. And, what you'd expect for a little catfish bite.
But is it a tartar sauce of you dip? Is it what's the sauce that accompanies a catfish bite?
Well, they've got tartar sauce, but I'm more of a ranch guy. I know it's probably wrong, and people would disagree with me, but I go for the ranch when it comes to the catfish bites.
All right. I was expecting cocktail sauce, but I'll let the ranch slide because universally accepted. So what's on the docket for the rest of this week? I know you're going to be checking in with us.
Yeah. Well, again, we're at the Helena reception right now. Coming up in about a half hour, we'll be heading to a BASF Behind the Science event where they like to explain either new products or new initiatives. It's ranged in the past from protecting pollinators to new chemistry for fungicides. So looking forward to that. Then later on tonight, we've got another event with FMC Corporation, learning about some of their products. Now tomorrow, the big trade show gets underway bright and early in the morning, and we'll be talking to all sorts of allied industry partners there. A big day tomorrow, lots of news conferences, and of course visits to the trade show booths. And it's jam-packed for the schedule. There's not a lack of things to do, that's for sure.
Well, you keep that pencil sharp, and I want some notes, and I want to quiz you when you come back. In fact, I'll do that maybe next hour, if not tomorrow, all right?
Okay. I will probably duck out of the BAS event next hour so we can talk more, and I'll give you an update.
All right. Rusty, my man, you get working on those beads too, all right? We'll talk to you next hour.
Okay.
All right.
Will do, friend.
All right, you take care. Rusty Halverson checking in live, New Orleans. He's going to be down there for the next couple of days. Before I get to CBS, I want to talk to Brian. Brian's been on hold, and I appreciate his patience there. Brian, how are you doing on this Wednesday?
Not too bad, Tyler. Hey, I just wanted to, I was hoping to catch the congressman, but I was going to say two things on when they talk about infrastructure, when they were talking E15, how they were going to have to change, do a bunch of stuff to the pumps. And I was in the petroleum industry, and the only pumps that are blended where they actually change the blend are like those E85 specialty pumps. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, we could have been doing E15 and more biodiesel and cut these fuel prices, fairly quickly. Even though we're dealing with cold temperatures.
Brian, you bring that up, and I'm glad you did, because, people are talking about the biofuel, some of the other things that this should be a boon for that as well, to help us in this situation.
Well, I would think so. Yeah. But and I don't know the protocol, so I'm going to ask you the question, but I was listening to a farm podcast earlier today, and they were interviewing a farmer from the Ukraine, and I don't know if you want me to mention the podcast name, but he was talking about the not only are the Russians stealing fuel from the farmers to keep their equipment going, but they don't think they're going to be able to put in a crop. Yeah. They're shelling and damaging, driving across fields. He actually took his family back because I think he was Dutch. And so he moved his personal family, but he said he had 400 employees there, and he didn't know what's he going to do about keeping them going. And the stores are all out of food, and so local farmers are delivering the wheat free to millers, and then they're having it baked at a bakery, and they're giving it out free.
Brian,
it's quite a story that's not getting.
Yeah, we
covered.
I touched briefly. Frayn Olson, he's with agribusiness up at North Dakota State University. We visited it briefly. That was part of our conversation, not the focus of it. But the worry that Ukrainian farmers will not get in the fields, what that will do for wheat in particular. But that you touch on another thing as far as, look, they're running out of food over there. What they are, Chickens, I saw another a video today. Now, I take that with a grain of salt because some of the things I see online that's happening there, you wonder, is this real or not? But chickens also,
Well,
some of the food that they're trying to rely on is getting taken away by this invasion. It's such a dire situation, Brian.
well, yeah, and I'm a farmer too, and I don't want any more expenses than I have,
Yeah.
have to. But I would think that solidarity of the farmers here and the farmers over there, at least we shouldn't be complaining too much about the fuel prices because we're not getting shot at.
No, Brian, you couldn't say it any better. When we talk about what we're paying at the pump, at least most of us are going home to our own bed at night, not sleeping in a subway somewhere, hoping to avoid getting shelling. There is Brian. You said it well. I'm glad that you hung on. I'm going to let you go. You take care of yourself, and appreciate the insight there. I'm going to get you caught up with CBS National News. These messages about my conversation with Congressman Armstrong, I will get to those. I need to check in with my friend Bill Warner, Capitol correspondent, down in St. Paul right after this.
Go marching by. Yeah.
2:45 on a Wednesday. Thanks for keeping it locked into KFGO, and I'm going to get right to my next guest, Bill Werner, our friend down in St. Paul, Capital correspondent, Minnesota News Network, joining us on a Wednesday afternoon. Bill, thanks for taking some time. How you been, man?
Oh, I've been good. How about you guys?
Doing well. We had
Good.
a day that we were above 20 on the positive side,
Yeah,
so who can complain, right?
I know what you mean. Yeah, we got into that day when they had all the storms down in Iowa, right? That tore it up down there. We got touching 40, I think, almost rain and thunderstorms in March, and you think to yourself, if this is happening here, somebody where it's a little bit warmer than us is going to get hammered, and that's what happened, unfortunately, down there in central Iowa.
Yeah, unfortunately, there's some tragic news about at least one family down there, but
bad situation. Yeah.
What's the situation out in the Capitol out there? I mean, I do want to get to Matt Burke coming, but
yes, indeed, we will.
Yeah, tell me about what's going on out in the legislature first.
Well, I'll play this. Short time ago there, outside on the steps of the Minnesota Capitol. So the teachers are out there on day number 2, Tyler.
Yeah, it sounded like a drum circle out there. So my question,
right.
Watching from afar here, and I know that locally on the North Dakota side, they're going to be, they've got a deadline, I think, in the next week to have their negotiations wrapped up. St. Paul, however, seems to have avoided a strike of their teachers. Minnesota, or I keep saying Minneapolis, you all know that. Minneapolis, not the case. The day 2, as you said. What are you hearing from these teachers?
Well, they're over at the Capitol today and saying that the problem here, I mean, it's a wages and salaries and benefits issue, but they say that it goes beyond that, and what they're stressing is the issue of student services, particularly mental health services, classroom sizes, those kind of things. They're over at the Capitol today, the message being we have a $9+ billion state budget surplus here. Let's beef up money for education. And that, Tyler, really, frames the difference between the two political parties, just kind of ratchets that up to a $9 billion level, from whatever it was earlier, in the sense that Democrats and their big backers are the teachers, and teachers' unions are heavy lobbyists for them. They say, we need to invest in Minnesota schools. Now is the time to do it. We have a lot of extra money here. Let's use some of that, not all of it, they say, but some of that to improve education. The Republicans say $9 billion, that is over-collected money. We are obviously, their argument is, we're obviously taxing Minnesotans too heavily at all income levels, and they're taking steps and have put forward proposals for permanent tax cuts. The Democrats say, well, if you do that, not only are you benefiting the most wealthy along with everybody else, and the governor says, I'm not going to do that, but they say also it's taking in a position where potentially we could be in deficit situation if the economy goes bad. So you can kind of see it's the same argument, but it's up at a higher level just because of the size of this surplus. And then it's magnified by the immediacy of the Minneapolis teachers strike, which, of course, is getting international attention, I think, just because of the situation of the students already in tough straits because of all the effects of COVID and remote learning, and some of them struggling to keep up, some of them behind, and now teachers are out of the classroom and the students are home.
Yeah, this is the first Minneapolis teacher strike since 1970. I'm curious, Bill, I know that you're a Minneapolis resident. One of these times I'm going to get right on the first try, Bill. You're a Minneapolis resident. What are your neighbors saying from the perspective? I understand the money argument from the teacher side, but as far as teachers going on strike, when we talk about unions right here in the Fargo-Moorhead area, people, they always come back and, if it weren't for a union, without acknowledging the benefits they've received, whether they're a union membership or not. But the teacher strike is the one that people seem to collectively say, this is wrong. I'm just curious, what are you hearing from your neighbors?
Well, it's a tough one. Yeah, I mean, there's no question about that, because it puts a lot of parents, in a tough situation, right? I mean, not only are there immediate logistical concerns about these students being home, but also then there's the concern on the part of many parents just about the long-term educational impact of this. And as I mentioned, I mean, some students are struggling already, right, because of distance learning. Education professionals even acknowledge distance learning didn't do the job, like being in class, and so they're playing catch up, and now we've got this time lost. So folks are concerned about it. On the other side, you have a number of people with union background who support the unions generally, and so they're likely divided. I don't want to say divided loyalties, but divided views on it potentially. I suspect some people are probably a little bit torn by this whole thing.
Yeah. Bill, I'm going to switch gears here for a moment because one thing in North Dakota, we've got this legacy fund that's got about $9 billion in it, and we have investments globally. Some of that was in the Russian Federation. We're trying to claw that back. I know Governor Walz is asking for some of those state investments to be pulled out of any connections to Russia as well. Of all the things that seems to have gotten bipartisan support, it's trying to pull out funding. I'm curious. Right. Same story out in St. Paul?
Oh, yeah. And the governor basically did an executive order that said state agencies will not have contracts with Russian entities. If you have them, cancel them, and you're not going to have any new ones. That was a step that he took. And then he's also calling on the legislature to direct the State Board of Investment, which is the investment agent. It's the state group that determines investments, the investment portfolio, or really passes judgment on that and approves or disapproves based on the recommendations of financial experts. He's asking the State Board of Investment to divest Minnesota of assets in Russian firms. And so that's in line with a lot of it's kind of what the state can do to supplement the national efforts, which of course are much more wide ranging.
Final question in the time I got here. I'm not going to get to Matt Burke. I'll have fun with that at another time.
We can talk about that. Yeah, we'll talk about that soon.
Yeah, we will. Gas tax. That's something that's discussed all the time in both states that's listening right now, or the three states that are. But in Minnesota, gas tax is another topic as far as having a holiday, trying to help off with the cost at the pump. What are you hearing out there, Bill?
That's right. And gas prices are high. They're that $4 plus per gallon range now. And actually, a group of Democrats called for a gas tax holiday from Memorial Day to Labor Day. Republicans taunted them about that or dismissed that and said it's an election year gimmick. The governor has, along with governors of 6 other states, including Tony Evers from neighboring Wisconsin, all Democrats, are asking the federal government to Congress to impose a gas tax holiday for the rest of the year. So that's kind of where it's at, and Republicans are coming back and saying this is election year gimmickry, and that's where it stands right now. So we're going to have to see what happens. On the state level, I think that probably the chances of that happening are pretty slim. The federal level remains to be seen.
I find it interesting that Republicans are opposed to a tax cut when it comes to this one in particular. But I'm not going to ask you that question. I just plant that seed in your mind as I have to get out of the way. Bill, it's always fun to catch up. Let's do this again next week, all right?
Likewise.
All right. You take care, my friend. Bill Warren, our Capitol correspondent down in St. Paul, getting all the latest. I mean, election year or not, they're talking about income tax cuts, which, okay, we can have that debate. But, oh, no, if Democrats are proposing a gas tax holiday, cutting that tax, that's a gimmick. You catch up on that? I mean, do you support a gas tax holiday? I don't care if you're listening to me, Minnesota, North Dakota, South Dakota. When you think about all the things that were discussed at the State of the Union when it comes to President Biden's remarks, the things that, look, this is going to have real world consequences if we have these changes. Banning the import of Russian oil, for example. That is going to cost you more likely at the pump. Do you support a gas tax holiday? We'll talk about that right after we get you caught up with some CBS National News. This is KFGO Fargo. Well, look at the time. It's 3:05. Here's what's trending today, March 9th. Last night, Golden State Warriors, when they were running out of the tunnel, it wasn't just the players. They had Jackie Moon come out. And now if you're wondering who Jackie Moon is, that is Will Ferrell's character in Semi-Pro, which I would say is an underrated movie. This song's from that. He ended up draining like a half-court shot last night. Will Ferrell did, as Jackie Moon.
I think Will Ferrell's a legit basketball player.
Yep, and Adam Sandler. Does comedy and basketball go together?
Well, and
like
I think
if you're
it's
a comedian,
just
you're good at basketball.
It's downtime on sets, right? They put up a driveway hoop, and everybody just shoots around.
Well, that tells me there's too much time on their hands. So that's what's trending today. Here's what else. Now, we did not play Notorious B.I.G. because it feels like every time when we play Notorious B.I.G. on Afternoons Live, we get a call off air of somebody complaining.
I lobbied for it, but I got overruled.
25 years ago today, Notorious B.I.G., Biggie Smalls, was shot and killed. So that's been 25 years ago. You can vote at 35270, yes or no, on Notorious B.I.G. being played on KFGL, the Triple Towers of Power. Got so much coming. Well, here's what's coming up. This next hour, you, me, this microphone, your cell phone. I don't have any other guests. The whole first hour was booked up because that's the only time I worked for them. So all these messages about Congressman Armstrong's conversation, the gas tax, holiday, you support it or not, coming back with those right after we check in with Paul Jurgens in that KFGO News Center.
KFGO News, 12 degrees. A Richland County patrol car was hit on I-29 south of Wahpeton last night. The deputy inside was hurt. The deputy was conducting a traffic stop on the southbound side of the interstate when a pickup failed to move over and hit the patrol vehicle. The deputy was extricated from her patrol car and taken to Fargo for medical treatment. She did suffer a broken arm. A section of the interstate was shut down for a short period of time until vehicles could be moved. That collision remains under investigation by the Highway Patrol. The Washington Commanders have agreed to acquire former Bison quarterback Carson Wentz from the Indianapolis Colts. The deal cannot be finalized until the start of the new league year next week. Washington is getting the 47th pick in the draft along with Wentz and sending Indianapolis numbers 42 and 73 this year, and a 2023 conditional third-round draft pick that can become a second based on Wentz's playing time. Wentz has 3 years remaining on his contract. The 2016 second overall pick of the Philadelphia Eagles spent one season with the Indianapolis Colts. Republican governor candidate Scott Jensen has named former Minnesota Viking and Baltimore Ravens setter Matt Burke as his running mate. Johnson made the announcement at a rally in Eagan, Jensen that is. He is the first candidate to announce a running mate in a large field of Republicans hoping to unseat Governor Tim Walz. A Minneapolis man who pleaded guilty to impersonating an FBI agent in 2017 will spend 10 months in prison. Prosecutors say 67-year-old Bernard Holmes admitted to spoofing his phone number to make it look like he was calling his victim from the FBI Minneapolis field office. Holmes claimed he was an agent investigating terrorism-related conduct at the victim's home and said evidence originated from their computer. An unusual case in northeastern Minnesota where the DNR suspects a moose that acted aggressively toward a vehicle and damaged truck near Evelyn last week had some type of neurological disorder. The moose was on a winter logging road. It didn't seem to be aware of workers in the area. Acting Wildlife Manager Penny Backman.
It looked like this moose had tried to walk in between a rather tall snowbank and the truck, and in its tipsy state fell into the truck, knocked off the mirror, and then just kind of slid down the hood and knocked out the front headlight from the well and kind of bent the hood a little bit.
Backman says a 775-pound cow was showing symptoms of brain worm. A conservation officer put the animal down. The moose will be analyzed at a state lab in St. Paul. KFGO Weather Center forecast. Fargo-Moorhead approaching 14 or so for a high today. Partly to mostly cloudy. We've seen a bit of sun late morning, early afternoon. Mostly clear overnight, about 11 below. Tomorrow, a mostly sunny morning. Some clouds in the afternoon. Some blowing snow in open areas, 16. Friday, 9 degrees. Partly to mostly cloudy, windy. Possible flurries. Saturday, light snow late in the day, a possibility. Otherwise, partly to mostly cloudy, windy, 22. Partly sunny Sunday and 32. Mostly cloudy, 13. Paul Jurgens, News Radio, KFGO.
All right, before I got you caught up with Paul Jurgens in the KFJO News Center, I do this little, hey, here's what happened on this day. Here's what's trending today at 3 o'clock. 25 years ago today, Notorious B.I.G. was shot and killed. And I said, look, anytime that we play that, I end up getting talked to about the bump songs that we play on Afternoons Live. People that don't like it certainly call in all the time, say, God, you know what? I heard this song on Tyler's show. Make him stop. So I'd ask, well, what do you want? Overwhelmingly, yes, Tyler, please play Notorious B.I.G. song. Yes to Notorious B.I.G., one of my faves. I love it when you call me Big Papa comes in. Yes to Big, duh, LOL. Yes. Okay. If by the time that I get out of here today, we stumble across and I accidentally have Eric push play on Notorious B.I.G., I need you to get my back, okay? Because it's always people that say, the naysayers out there, which I love you for listening to me. I'm just saying. I get word of when you call to complain about me. So when you enjoy, let them know as well. I've got the front desk number, but I'm not going to give that away because you know what? Lori's out there, and Lori's a sweetheart. Same with Peggy. They're great people. But we'll see. I'm not promising that it's going to happen today, but overwhelmingly in the text club, yes, you want to hear Notorious B.I.G. One thing that I didn't get a chance to visit with Bill Werner, and I'll get back to these messages, Matt Burke. Matt Burke, you remember him from a couple of things. One, of course, if you're a Minnesota Vikings fan, you remember Matt Burke. I think he went on to Baltimore, but you might remember the United Way commercials as well. If you don't, take a listen to this. Matt Burke went to Harvard. Those lineup of commercials, I think Deuce Staley had one as well. I try to think of who else was in those United Way commercials, but Matt Burke went to Harvard. That stuck with you. Did that give him cred? Did that give him street cred for you over in Minnesota? And you're thinking about, well, got the Scott Jensen character, a doctor. He was a lawmaker. I think he was in the state senate. He's running for governor. In fact, I think he's, according to some of the polling in Minnesota, is he the front runner for getting the Republican nomination to take on Governor Walz? But this trickled out just a little bit over the weekend. I saw online some of the people I follow and are friends with, I guess, on social media platforms say, look, here's what I'm hearing. Matt Burke, the guy that went to Harvard, the guy that was the offensive lineman, yeah, he's going to be the lieutenant governor candidate out in Minnesota. My question, and this is just generally speaking, not just the fact that you got Matt Burke as lieutenant governor. I mean, he can take anybody in any state. Does that at all weigh your vote as a lieutenant governor? I mean, typically you're going and voting on the governor candidate themselves, right? But Matt Burke, high profile name. Now, Matt Burke, the reason why I'm sure that Scott Jensen went to him, aside from the big name, is they were peas in a pod when it came to their criticisms of the mandates, vaccine mandates, mask mandates, anything COVID-19 related. They were on the same page. That's going to be, I suspect, a big chunk of their platform. You know, and my question, albeit understanding that some places were impacted, I'm on a border right now, and which the side of the border that I lived on, boy, we had, 3 weeks of which things were shut down. But then, you know what, we were opened up, capacity limitations. Minnesota, you had a lot worse, if you're a business owner, that is. So I understand that. But if you're going to run your 2022 campaign on anti-mandates, my question is, what mandates? I mean, there's a whole trucker convoy that came rolling right through here just last week. People said, what are you protesting for? These mandates are not there. And the ones that had been instilled got thrown out. So if you're going to have your candidacy based on that argument, do you have a leg up? Because it's already kind of been just dusted off to the side, has it not? 35270, that's the Consultants of North Dakota Text Club. You can also call into the Laney studio line at 237-5948. In fact, I'm going to go to this text club. We started off, and we're doing this once a month. Congressman Kelly Armstrong going to be joining us, giving his take. And you know what? We serve together. We get along. But boy, when we disagree, it's a lot of fun because of exactly what one of the messages that I'm going to start off with. Because he at least says something. We went out, and when we were in Bismarck, we would be at each other on policy, on debates, and then would go out and have a beer afterwards. That's the way I think a lot of us want it to be, and I think that for some of us it still can be. This message into 35270. Tyler, I like how Congressman Armstrong tells it straight what he likes, doesn't like about the administration, etc., without just spewing partisan sound bites. Now, that's what I like about visiting with him as well. I might not agree. I might roll my eyes at times as to what his explanation is to why he might take a position, but at least he gives a position and doesn't dance around the subject, doesn't throw out, let's see, keep a tally at home on how many times you're going to hear the words jobs. If you're going to be listening to John Hoeven do an interview. Congressman Armstrong, like him, not voting for him, at least he answers questions in a way that he's being truthful. I admire that. I can disagree with it. I might not vote for him, for example. But there's something there that if you're in public office, disagree or not, at least having somebody that'll take your question and provide an answer. More messages in, but I tell you what, you know the rules. We get to the phone lines, and that's where I'm going to connect with AJ. AJ, thanks for calling in. How are you this Wednesday?
Oh, I'm living the dream or living the nightmare there.
Depend on what hour of the day?
And I can't tell the difference between the two.
Fair enough, AJ. I like that. I'm going to jot that one down. I might use that later on this weekend. What's on your mind?
When you have Mr. Armstrong on, and this also would refer to Mr. Kramer, they've been adamant about not taking in Russian oil and somehow allowing taking some restriction off of North Dakota oil production.
Mm-hmm.
I would like them to tell us flat out what percentage of capacity the refinery in North Dakota is running. If they know specifically if it is running at nearly 100%, because if the refinery there, and I can't remember exactly where it's at, if it is only running at half its capacity, they are responsible for the high prices, or refineries like them.
Well, and AJ
would be responsible.
Yeah, that's when it comes to the refineries at all, when you've got the importation of Russian oil, we've got refineries set up in a way that they take specific types of oil. We have a different type of oil in North Dakota than what they have in Canada, than what they have in Russia. We apparently, with all this, hey, we're energy independent. And if I get a copy and paste text all the time say we were energy independent under Donald Trump, we were not. We do not have the refineries to the capacity to take what we have in North Dakota's ground and then turn that into what we need right here. So if we talk about, we need capital for it, they've made billions of dollars over the last few years. I mean, the capital is there. So I don't know if it's the boogeyman that is, well, we got a Democrat in the White House, so let's go ahead and use this to our advantage, or what. But you've got the money. You've got the only thing that I could see as far as besides the rhetoric of this Democratic administration is, well, you can't have new leases on some of these federal lands. Well, if that's all, it's just there's more that can be done from the industry side.
And the point is, they're saying take off the restrictions. Well, if these oil wells right now are not pumping oil, how long will it take them to get that oil pumping? It's not going to be overnight. It's going to take several weeks, up to even months. So,
yeah. AJ,
you have a good day, Tyler.
Yeah, I appreciate the phone call. You do the same. In fact, I'm pulling up. I touched just briefly on this yesterday, so bear with me. In North Dakota, and I got this from a lawmaker, and I'm getting told I got to take a break here. I'll do this real quick. There's drilled but uncompleted wells here in North Dakota. State law said 1 year to complete those wells. The Industrial Commission, that's the governor, that's the Attorney General, and the Ag Commissioner, said, well, do it whenever. There's the leniency in North Dakota that we've come to expect when it comes to oil production. But there are, as of January, over 400 drilled but uncompleted wells right here in North Dakota. What's stopping them? If it's state land, what's stopping them if it's nothing that has to do with the federal government? Haven't got an answer from the state. I got to run here real quick. We'll come back. I'm Tyler Axis. You got a locked into KFGO Fargo. It is amazing to me how the conversation and the perception of Carson Wentz, as far as national pundits, people that are following along with the NFL, Philadelphia Eagles fans, Indianapolis Colts fans, have just completely soured on him and his ability to play on the field. Watching as this trade unfolded today with the Washington Commanders, so we're going to have Commander Carson, is that's the only positive thing I've seen. Aside from what I just scrolled by, which is somebody photoshopped his face on a George Washington painting. It's not very flattering. Other than that, boy, there's been a lot of people saying, what are you doing here? Like, they just want to write him off.
You mean Washington crossing the Delaware, the famous
No, just like a portrait painting.
Okay.
No, not the heroic, hey, we're crossing the Delaware.
Okay, good.
No. But I'm just saying it's not that flattering, but that's one of those you might want to save it for future uses. Anyway, we'll talk a little bit more about that in a little bit. Tyler, is it factual? This is the text club, 35270. iConsultants from North Dakota. Thank you. Sponsoring that. Is it factual there are more than 9,000 approved oil drilling permits that aren't being used? Yes, it is. And I asked Congressman Armstrong about that. And that podcast is up wherever you get your podcast. But you know what? You want to save a couple clicks, kfgo.com, podcast page, Afternoons Live. Because I had asked him that. And he said, well, it's more than just having the permit to go out and do things. I get the infrastructure, but when it keeps coming back to, well, you don't have the capital. Bull. They've got the capital as far as the industry goes. They do. I mean, pick any one of them. They've made billions of dollars. Now, I mean, there's so many other things that play into this. We always want to just be able to point at somebody and say, it's your fault. And boy, the Republicans are doing a hell of a good job of doing that to Joe Biden right now, saying that we were energy independent. If I get that copy and paste text one more time from the same individual that says we were energy independent under Trump, you're lying to yourself. You can say that we're saying a bunch of BS here. You're lying to yourself. We were not energy independent. We were still importing oil from Russia then as well. But if you want to talk about some of the other causes as to why we had not been drilling, say, here in North Dakota, you got the COVID recession. You weren't traveling. In some cases, you were not allowed to travel. That impacted. We had supplies of just overflowing oil. You had the supply, demand, all of that. It does take time. And actually, since the administration took over and about ever since then, it hasn't been steady, but the production has been going up. Now, nothing to what it was before the pandemic. We're still quite short of that. But the trend for production, yes, even under this Democratic administration, has been trending up. So you've got COVID, which people want to just ignore that being a cause for some of this. You've got oil prices that were too low to justify at the time. You're looking at the price per barrel now. That doesn't seem to be the case. More Afternoons Live right after KFGO News.
News and weather this hour brought to you by Muscatel Pre-Owned. Muscatel's was voted #1 by LocalsLoveUs.com for good reason. So stop in today to Muscatel Pre-Owned, just off of Exit 1 in Moorhead.
Mostly cloudy, 12 degrees. I'm Paul Jurgens. 101 people died last year in vehicle crashes in North Dakota. The state DOT says there were 100 fatalities in both 2020 and 2019. In 43 of the deadly crashes last year, seatbelts were not in use. There were 31 drinking-related deaths, down about 20% from 2020. Speed was considered a factor in 27 fatal crashes. 8 of the deaths were in 2021 were motorcyclists, and 9 pedestrians died. The Washington Commanders have agreed to acquire former Bison quarterback Carson Wentz from the Indianapolis Colts. That deal cannot be finalized until the start of the new league year next week. Washington is getting the 47th pick in the draft along with Wentz and sending Indianapolis draft numbers 42 and 73 this year, and a 2023 conditional third-round pick that can become a second based on Wentz's playing time. Former Viking center Matt Burke is the running mate of Minnesota Republican governor candidate Scott Jensen. Jensen, a doctor who has questioned the effectiveness of COVID-19 vaccines, is the first in the large field of Republicans to name his choice for lieutenant governor. Burke says he thinks it's time to move on from the 2020 presidential election.
I think we need to get past, Trump and the election and all that. I think we need to move forward. Quite honestly, I don't think we're doing any good going back, 2 years and talking about things and complaining and just basically making noise and stopping us from making any type of progress.
Unlike Burke, Jensen still questions President Biden's victory. Burke is against same-sex marriage and abortion rights. He spent 10 years with the Vikings before he retired from the Baltimore Ravens. 12 degrees. This is KFGO News. "12 degrees, mostly cloudy. This is KFGO News. Union leaders are back at the bargaining table in Minneapolis with school leaders are trying to find a compromise to end the strike now on its second day. Teachers and support staff say they want more pay, lower class sizes, and more mental health support in schools, among other demands. Greta Callahan represents the Minneapolis Federation of Teachers.
We are 100% committed to settling the strike, and they need to talk about our members' top priorities. They are no longer in control. We have 5,000 people on the streets. We are in a righteous fight. Our members are not going to back down, and we are listening to them.
District administrators say they don't have the money to do everything the union is demanding. Vikings' highly anticipated Mississippi River cruises between New Orleans and St. Paul are a step closer to reality. The company celebrated the float out of its new 386-guest Viking Mississippi ship on Monday. It is a major construction milestone and the first time the ship has touched water. The company says it's the final stage of construction ahead of a maiden voyage in June. Its ports of call include 7 states: Louisiana, Mississippi, Tennessee, Missouri, Iowa, Wisconsin, and Minnesota. Fargo-Moorhead will see a clearing sky tonight. KFGO meteorologist Tom Szymanski is expecting a cold night, 11 below for our low. Tomorrow about 16, mostly sunny to begin the day, and then some increasing clouds. Also the possibility of more blowing snow in open areas tomorrow afternoon. Friday, partly to mostly cloudy, windy, chance of flurries, 9 above. Saturday near 22, partly to mostly cloudy, slight chance of light snow later in the day. Partly sunny Sunday and 32. Mostly cloudy, 13 degrees. Paul Jurgens, News Radio, KFGO.
I challenge my friend Rusty Halverson that the next stop you go as you're down in New Orleans to play that song on a jukebox and then check in with the reaction of your fellow commodity classic goers down there, if you will.
Okay. Well, the good news is We made it to the BASF Behind the Science event. They hit it really well. It's above a pizza place, and there was no signs, but we made it. We made it, and I got you some beads.
You did. You know what? By a man of his word, I said, "Look, your lack of beads is pretty disappointing in your day that you've been there. As long as you come back with some beads, I don't want to ask how. I don't even know how you acquired. I just want some beads from New Orleans." And we just heard from Paul Jerkins. You know what? If you're down there long enough, they're going to have a maiden voyage on the mighty Mississippi. You could ride a boat from New Orleans right on up to St. Paul. Now, for you to get from St. Paul to Fargo, that's on you. But that'd be interesting, right?
Yeah, I'd be hitchhiking it from there, I think, or I don't know, rental car.
Yeah,
probably not an Uber.
Oh, probably not.
But the event's going well, and like I said last hour, we're gearing up for the trade show tomorrow. But had an interesting conversation with a fellow by the name of Ward Bloodworth from Helena, and he was talking about some of the supply chain issues and whatnot. And he figures, like other experts have said, that we've got the fertilizer needs we have in place. Getting it around to different geographies may be difficult. He feels the worst about retailers who have had to purchase fertilizer over the last 10 days, because as I know, Tyler, all the different world events have certainly thrown that market into an even more volatile state. Yeah. And but good conversation with him, and going to see what BASF has to say, and then hearing from the folks from FMC later on tonight too. So we'll be bringing all sorts of audio home, that's for sure.
Well, I look forward to catching the latest updates, and this the fertilizer exports from the region over in Ukraine and Russia is on a lot of people's minds. On top of everything else we're watching with the destruction and devastation there. So, Rusty, I appreciate you checking, man. You have fun, and we'll chat again tomorrow, all right?
Okay, that sounds like a plan, Tyler.
All right, you take care, my friend. Rusty Halverson, Sarah Heinrich, they're multi-award-winning journalists of agriculture. If you can't wait until tomorrow, you just go to kfgo.com. You can click on that agriculture tab to learn a little more. Get you caught up with CBS National News. You'll learn about some of the latest there. We'll come back. More of your messages sent into the iConsultants of North Dakota text club. I'll share those with your fellow listeners. Then, keeping it real, Eric Hatch. That is at 4 o'clock right here on KFGO. I'd ask you the question at the top of the hour, right before we got you caught up with some local headlines, whether or not a gas tax holiday is something you'd support. In Minnesota, they're discussing that as they have their legislative session going on. They got a $9 billion surplus. You've been noticing, I mean, we talked all Monday about this very topic, but gasoline prices. Appreciate all of you lending your voice to that. But I'd ask you the question at that time, when it comes to banning importing of Russian oil and what that might do towards what you're paying at the pump, if it's still something you'd be in favor of doing. And overwhelmingly, I mean, every single one of you said, yep, ban it, be done with it. I don't care if I pay more. That's the same sentiment I'm getting right now, which for me a bit, I don't know if I want to say surprising, but to piece together all the hand-wringing, all the griping that is going on, and I'm not faulting you for it. I mean, boy, I wish I was paying $2 less than what it takes per gallon. But then to say, but I get it. For the ones that are at least responding in right now, I appreciate that. Because when it comes to the gas tax holiday, you're trying to take away a tax that is particularly used to fund your roads, funds your bridges. That the road, the ways of which you drive with that gasoline and that vehicle, I mean, that's what the purpose of this is. And overwhelmingly right now, I don't want to have a gas tax holiday. I know it sucks to pay more at the pump, but it's worth good roads. And I'm paraphrasing one that comes in. Tyler, I don't think there should be a gas tax holiday. It's a user fee. What will happen as, run out of money, and we will run out of money, I think is what it's supposed to be, and the roads will be in worse shape. A little bit of pain for a little while is better than a lot of pain later. And I respect that. I mean, I do, because the road conditions, especially up in the upper Midwest here, when you've got this warming and cooling, I mean, you drive over these roads every day. It's pothole season, which some people, hey, you know what, that means we're a step closer to spring. That's some of you optimists out there. But, I mean, there are certain areas, and I love you, Minnesota. I do. Yeah, I love spending time out, the outdoors, the recreation. But let's be honest, the roads on that side of this river of which divides us right now aren't ideal. And they've been neglected for quite some time. Now, luckily, what's happened is you're going to have an infusion of federal dollars that's going to come in and help out with that. So when we talk about this gas tax holiday, I get it. They're saying, hey, in the long run, this would be a bad thing. I think there's enough federal dollars to maybe offset you right now. I mean, there's billions upon billions of dollars that have gone in to your states to help with roads and bridges. The bipartisan infrastructure bill. Now, look, I mean, to kick it right back to the top of the show at 2 o'clock, when we started this program on this Wednesday with our congressman on the North Dakota side, Kelly Armstrong, he admitted on this show that of the things that he's basically regret when it comes to his vote is not supporting that in the meantime, that bill, because he knows it's going to do a lot of good. He admitted that. Missed the podcast there. Go back however many months ago it was. But I bring that up because when we think about this user fee, as this person talks about, saying, look, I hate paying, I hate watching that dollar just continue to go up every time you drive by the gas station, 7 more cents, 10 more cents. If you could alleviate that for some of these families that are living paycheck to paycheck, and you know what, I'm fortunate that I'm not one of them, okay? So call me a snob, guys, say whatever it is, that I hate it, but I can afford it. There are some families out there that are struggling right now, and paying for the gas at the pump is not an easy go. So if you get a gas tax holiday, whether that's from, point A to point B, and it's a matter of 3 months, I would be open to the conversation this time. Now, if you would have asked me this same question 2 years ago, I would have said nope, because of exactly what you threw out there. Saying, look, that user fee is for those roads. We can't diminish it right now. I'm not saying get rid of it entirely forever. Get rid of it for a couple of months during the travel season. I mean, you're all itching to get out of the house, out of the office, because it's this dang winter that has gone on and on. And in fact, I just got handed a wind chill advisory from 6 this evening to noon tomorrow. But boy, that first time that we eclipsed 50 degrees, you want to get out there, you want to hit the roadways. I think a gas tax holiday is appropriate as of now. That's where I stand. Of course, I'm not in agreement with a lot of people that have texted. Your thoughts, you can send those into 35270, the Laney studio line as well at 237-5940. I'm going to get you this weather update from Too Tall Tom. Got a little bit more time with you on this topic, and then keeping it real. Eric Hatch is going to be in studio. Anything that you have a question on related to buying and or selling, remodeling, he's the individual you're going to want to ask. You can send those into the Eye Consultants of North Dakota Text Club as well. That's going to be the last hour of Afternoons Live on a Wednesday afternoon. Stick around. We're about 7 minutes until the top of the hour. Get your national news headlines at 4 o'clock with CBS. Paul Zergas of the KFGO News Center. Get all your local news from KFGO. And we got Eric Hatch keeping it real every second Wednesday of the month, which it already is for the month of March. That's today. We'll get all of your real estate updates in this final hour. In the meantime, we're talking about the gas tax, potential holiday. Here, if I had my crystal ball right in front of me here, of will they, won't they? They won't. I got a feeling that it's not. You got the Republicans in Minnesota, which again I point out that they want to point out that a gas tax cut is some election year gimmick, while they're also trying to do other taxes that primarily are going to benefit top earners. That's another topic of conversation here. But I bring it up because you've got the Republicans controlling, I believe it's the Minnesota Senate. So, I mean, you've got the divide in Minnesota. If it's the House, I apologize. I don't remember off the top of my head which one they're in control of. But that means it's not going to go anywhere. But just for the topic of conversation, is this something you'd support to help out with those families living paycheck to paycheck with everything else rising in cost the way it is? Well, this is one of those things that you do have a little bit that what you can do. I mean, hell, in South Dakota, something that's not going anywhere by the looks of it now, that was discussed as having a sales tax holiday on food. I mean, there are things that can be done to help out when it comes to the expense of what you're paying in any given area. This message comes in that's interesting. I don't agree with it, but I'm going to share it with you. Tyler, if you want to cut the cost of gas to go down, quit driving around so much, less running around by the whole country. As proven during the pandemic, gas costs went down. Here's what I disagree with. You're not going to be able to bottle it up. I mean, the less travel. The premise of what you raised, okay, that did prove itself out. That when you could not travel, when people, whether by choice or by mandates at that time, which don't exist anymore, if you weren't out there traveling all around, the costs went down. But what that did was pent up so much demand for people to get out of their house, get out of the office, go somewhere, see something different, visit with those you hadn't seen in a while. That demand, you cannot bottle that back up. I mean, it's still eager to get out to some of the concerts that are nowhere near here that I plan on driving. Hell, every other week we're going to be taking you back on the road through these airwaves to area locations or destinations that have concerts, that have just their community fund. I mean, we're getting you back on the road just because there's that urge, that demand that I want to get back out there. Even after this whole last year and a half, they've had the ability to do so. So I get what you're saying. There's just no way, there's no chance it's going to happen. There's too many people that want to get out, explore. Will it diminish a little bit? Will it cause this market correction in of itself because some can't afford to do that? Perhaps. But if it's just saying, hey, you got to change your habits, don't drive as much, I don't think that happens unless you can't afford to do so. 35270, that's the I Consultants of North Dakota text club. Use it right now if you have any real estate questions. I'm talking buying, I'm talking selling. Some of those new developments, it's not just in South Fargo, down in that Horace area, and West Fargo as well. There's other parts I want to ask Eric Hatch where those are. Where are the pockets that are being developed that you might not be hearing about? But he takes your questions as well. If you want to ask a question, should I remodel this before putting it on the market? What's that market doing? He's the guy to ask, and he's coming up right after this. I'm Tyler Axedis. My producer is Eric Johnson. We got another hour with you right here. This is Afternoons Live on KFGO. Time has flown by. It's already the second Wednesday of the month, and that means Eric Hatch, keeping it real. Eric's in the studio. How you doing, man?
Holy cow.
Flown by.
Yeah, I thought I was here yesterday, it felt like, and I'm so glad to be back. This is one of my favorite things to do, and I get to talk about real estate in the community, and we get to make fun of each other. It's a really joyous hour.
Yeah, we'll see what Paulie brings in this week as far as outdated snacks.
The old Fig Newtons.
Yeah, the Fig Newtons, which I still have not been able to find on any grocery store shelves since 1996, but he found them somewhere. I've already got questions coming in for you.
Okay.
People asking about gas prices, whether they influence the market. Don't answer yet. We'll come back to you.
You bet.
Also, adding a walk-in shower, all of that. So if you got a question, either it's remodeling, buying, selling, where's the hot market? Is it all south of Fargo? Is there anything going on north of Fargo, east? It's all on the table. You can send those into 35270. Laney studio line open as well at 237-5948. For the next hour, it's Keeping It Real with Eric Hatch right here on KFGO.
A sheriff's deputy was injured during a traffic stop when her squad car was struck by a pickup on I-29 south of Wapaton late last night. It happened when a vehicle and the squad car were stopped in the southbound lanes. The driver of a pickup failed to move over and struck the Richland County Sheriff's Department squad. The deputy was taken to a Fargo hospital with a broken arm. The driver of the pickup was taken to the hospital in Breckenridge. The crash remains under investigation. Traffic deaths in North Dakota reached triple digits for the third straight year in 2021. 101 people died following back-to-back years of 100 fatalities. Of those who died last year, 43 were not wearing seat belts. Drinking was involved in 31 fatalities, and speed was a factor in 27 deaths. 8 motorcyclists and 9 pedestrians were killed in 2021. No charges will be filed against a Ramsey County sheriff's deputy who struck and killed a suspect with his patrol car in Mounds View, Minnesota.
Dakota County Attorney Kathy Keena reviewed the case and concluded that Sergeant Don Rindahl was legally justified when he used deadly force last September. Officers called to a domestic assault say 48-year-old Troy Ingstrom of Shoreview fired at a Mounds View police car. The Ramsey County Sheriff's Office says Rindahl was fearing for his life and the life of others when he used his vehicle to stop the threat and ran into Ingstrom. He died in the hospital that night.
That's reporter Brent Palm. More than a year after President Biden revoked the federal permit for the contentious Keystone XL oil pipeline, lawyers for the project are asking South Dakota to consider nearly all activities in the state officially ended. Parent company TC Energy has filed a request with the State Public Utilities Commission asking the 3-member panel to release a $15 million road bond that regulators required as part of the 2010 decision granting the South Dakota permit. The commission will also consider TC Energy's request to approve removal of the public liaison officer in South Dakota, saying her work is finished. Wind chill advisory from 6 this evening until noon tomorrow. Fargo-Moorhead, overnight mostly clear. We expect a low about 11 below zero tomorrow. Beginning mostly sunny, then some clouds by afternoon, some blowing snow in open areas in the afternoon, 16. 9 Friday, partly to mostly cloudy, windy too, chance of flurries. Little light snow is possible late Saturday, otherwise partly to mostly cloudy, windy, and 22. And for Sunday, near 32, partly sunny. Fargo-Moorhead, mostly cloudy, 12. Paul Jurgens, News Radio, KFGO.
Every second Wednesday, it's your chance to ask the questions of Eric Hatch, keeping it real. I've already got some in for you, Eric. You want to start with those?
Yeah, hit me with your best shot. That's what, is that Pat Benatar and Eric Hatch?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we're pretty much the same.
It's the same.
Yeah.
That was a real Wayne Gretzky, Michael Scott situation.
Thank you.
There. Yeah.
You miss 100% of the shots you don't take. Yeah.
Wayne Gretzky. Here, I'll go right to the text club. It's your chance, 35270. iConsultants of North Dakota sponsors the text club. It's free for you. Message rates may apply, so I should say that as well. I don't know. I don't know what service plan you've got. Tyler, can you ask Eric, does the price of gas influence the real estate market?
So let's talk about everything we know about gas. It's going up, and it doesn't know when it's going to stop. On a global scale, gas is inexpensive in the United States compared to some countries in Asia and Europe and that sort. So gas is expensive everywhere right now, and a lot of it is the Russia-Ukraine situation. And then it's also a supply and demand situation. There's also all these underlying factors, and I'm no politician or gas expert, but I know that real estate tends to follow a lot of the trends of what's happening in the world. Prices are up on real estate, and I can't say that it's because of gas, because I can say that food prices are up. If you go to a fast food restaurant, there's no 99-cent menu anymore. It's like $1.79 menu, right? So prices are up everywhere, and real estate is no exception. So I can't say that it's because of gas. I think that they're following some of the same trends. But here's the big difference, Tyler, is that if you look at gas prices from like 1980 until today, they're up way more than they should be. And if you look at food prices, or maybe a gallon of milk, it's up way more than it should be. And if you look at real estate, it's up way more than it should be, but the difference is still affordability, because the cost of the house and what you pay on a monthly payment, those are two different things. Mm-hmm. You look at what you paid on a monthly payment in 1980 compared to what you pay today, and it is down. Like it's going to cost you more, but it's nowhere near on that same trend of like an appreciation of like 3 or 4% a year for what the inflation rate should be. And so because of that, housing, whether it's gas or market related, it is more affordable now, even though it's more expensive, and that's due to the interest rates.
One thing, I'll put myself in a buyer's shoes here. Looking at gas prices, what they are, and as you said, who knows how long this will go, how high it'll go. Mm-hmm. You know, you've got some families that, you know what, I work in Fargo, but I don't want to live inside city. I want to have that bedroom community. I want to drive X amount of miles back and forth every day. Mm-hmm. Do they start questioning that decision now when they look at how much it's going to cost driving 10, 20, 30 miles back and forth?
What's ironic, and this is only my experience of people I've talked to recently, is I think they'll complain about gas prices, but still they want to live where they want to live. Yeah, that's what I see is a lot of these properties that are in the Argusvilles and Mayvilles and Castletons and Barnesvilles and these communities that are 10 or 20 minutes outside of the major metro of Fargo, as major as it is. These communities have a lot of people that are actually working from home. And so that becomes less and less of an issue when it comes to gas prices. But if you think about it, if you're driving back, you get 20 miles to the gallon and you live in Barnesville. You're Derek Hansen, you live in Barnesville, and so you drive back and forth every day. What used to cost you $7 to drive is now going to cost you $9 to drive. So that is a son of a gun. But what we've seen is that through everyone changing jobs and money now being a little more available for folks, and through government cash that we've gotten, people have more cash in their pockets for the most part. And so where we maybe are voicing complaint or frustration about that, I don't think it's changing our behavior on a daily basis. Real estate will still remain. If a house comes up for sale in Argusville, I don't think people are going to live necessarily as often in a Mayville or a Hillsborough that are a solid 30 to 45 minutes out. But I think anything within a 20-minute circle, I can't see people changing their decision simply based on gas prices.
Very good. Question for you when it comes to developments. You know, it doesn't take a long drive south to say, boy, there's a lot of growth out here.
Yeah, it like blends to Wapaton.
Yeah. To this point, yeah, it might as well be all the way down there. But I've seen dirt being moved up north along I-29 in between, Riley's Acres, the Harwood area. I mean, are there other communities that you're hearing, hey, there's going to be some movement here, like in Argusville, you brought up a couple of times?
Yeah. So one of the unique things about our community is that we are the cross section of two major interstates, right? I-29 and I-94. That usually only happens in major metros, and we're fortunate to have it happen here because we get a lot of passer-throughs. The square footage of our community is asinine. We are a bigger community than Boston, Massachusetts, or San Francisco, California. Right. And so the spread is really large. We tend to build out before we build up. Governor Burgum with the Kilbourne Group talked about density, especially down in like the Fargo-Moorhead community, and how you want to have more density on the actual city land. And that is a great way to benefit from taxes and everything else. And so they're trying to build up more than they're trying to build out. But we're as a community, we want to spread, and we don't want people on top of us. You think of those transplants who are coming from Mohall, North Dakota, and they're moving to the Fargo-Moorhead community. They don't want anybody within earshot.
Yeah, you want a lot. You want space. You don't want to be able to roll your window down and lean out and touch the house next door.
And certainly some new development communities, those have, or new construction communities, those have the ability to lean out and touch that person that's next to you. And it's kind of right on top of each other, just depending on your price range. And so I say all that because Fargo has plumb run out of space. We have the river on one side that keeps us. We have the airport on another side, and then there's Harwood and Argusville that'll keep folks from running into that. South, they're continuing to grow. South can grow all the way down to Oxbow before you run into another serious. I mean, there's Hickson and Oxbow, that stuff. So you're going to run into some small communities, but those are going to start filling up, as well as West. There's the diversion because West Fargo has a diversion already. And so there's building around that. There's the fairgrounds that you have to work with. But here's my guess. I say all of that in staging this. I think in the next 5 to 10 years, Castleton is going to feel like Horace. Horace right now is a direct extension of West Fargo. They are two unique communities, but they're sharing some school districts. They're sharing a lot of resources, and it's interesting to see. I think Castleton is going to be an extension of Mapleton, which is an extension of Fargo, and we will fill that entire I-20 or I-94 corridor, heading west. Heading south, I can see it filling up all the way to, say, an Oxbow type area. And then heading north, I think we're going to see the Harwoods and the Argusvilles all the way up to like Gardner. I don't know. But I do think that population density is going to continue in those communities. And we're going to see some really fun opportunities as we continue to grow. As for the east side, Moorhead and Minnesota is not growing as much, and that's due to income tax. When you compare property tax and income tax, property tax on the Minnesota side of things is an advantage. Property taxes are simply lower. Income tax on the North Dakota side is an advantage because it's lower. So if you as a household tend to make $80,000 a year, financially it makes more sense to live in North Dakota for how your dollar goes.
I've heard that a lot, actually, from our friends over in Minnesota. And we have some of those developers on just casually talking about, so what are you hearing? It always comes back to that.
Yeah.
The income tax figure. I'm going to go back to the text club at 35270. I'd said, look, if you got a remodeling question, throw it out there. We'll see what Eric's got. Tyler asked Eric if adding a walk-in shower and taking out the bathtub on a 3-bedroom, 1-bath house increases the value or decreases the value.
So if you take out the shower or take out the bathtub and put a shower in, that is unique either to a handicap accessible person or somebody who doesn't have new babies or toddlers. Most people don't take baths anymore. Showers are the norm unless you are disabled, oftentimes elderly with limited mobility, or you're super young. And so you actually limit your market a little bit in terms of, is everybody going to love this? I think for the most part, you're not hurting your value. You're probably adding in a tile surround where it was a fiberglass surround before. That's expensive, that's labor intensive, and you won't get all your dimes back that you put in for that. However, you're now more aesthetically pleasing. You're now a house that feels more updated, and so it won't hurt you. I just can't say with confidence that, man, you're gonna rake in another $5,000 because you have a shower now instead of a bathtub. I think most people won't care, but those with newborns or those with disabilities are going to struggle.
And for all those that like those bath bombs and candlelit evenings with a glass of wine.
I just, give me some pizza rolls and love to soak in a tub.
Yes. Just let the world slip away.
That's right.
More questions coming in to 35270. It's keeping it real every second Wednesday of the month. Eric Katch joins me in studio. I'm Tyler Axis. You got it locked in to KFGO Fargo. down here. There's going to have, sounds like maybe a mixed-use building, but I'd said, and I brought this up with Derek Hansen the other day, up in Devil's Lake, we had a Kmart. You had either Walmart or you had Kmart. And you know what? Out of the two, we were going to Kmart most of the time. Not because of anything outside of really the fact that they had a little Caesars on the inside of that Kmart. You walk in the front where you would have the help desk.
Kmart and Little Caesars is like defining my childhood.
It's you would expect when you come in that door, right? And you look over, you see the checkout line, and then on the right side you'd expect that help desk or that Best Western.
Yeah.
No, it's a Little Caesars. You come over, you get your piece of pizza, you go walk and you shop. It was great.
Little Caesars for me was a staple. And as a chubby kid growing up, I would every day after school walk from McKinley Elementary School in North Fargo. I would walk to Northport Hornbachers in the shopping center. And Little Caesars was in that shopping center at the time. And I was always a good student, and so I'd have a gold card. Do you remember like the gold cards that you would get when you were like an A or B honor roll student? I mean, maybe you weren't an A or B honor roll.
I hate to break it to you, Eric. No, my grades didn't hold up that well.
Well,
Thanks for outing me.
I had this gold card, and so all these local businesses are like, we're going to support these kids. So you could go, and with any purchase at Little Caesars, they would give you a free 8-pack of breadsticks. So every day after school, I would go and I would buy a 32-ounce soda as an 11-year-old. I'd buy a 32-ounce soda and then have an 8-pack of breadsticks as a snack. Now,
I'm all hopped up on Mountain Dew.
I'm gonna come at you like a spider monkey. Yeah, no doubt. And so this was my run. This is a very one-off inside track, because folks, you probably are like, Eric, you're a respected member of the community. At least I hope that's what you're saying. And you know, you come from ministry, but I used to be a bad boy. Like, although I was an A honor roll student, I was a shoplifter when I was a 5th and 6th grader. And I shoplifted up at Northport Hornbachers right next to Little Caesars, and I shoplifted at Ben Franklin Crafts in that same strip mall.
Ben Franklin used to be the coolest.
So hear me out, because this is a fun story here. And my Aunt Ann is listening right now in Sartell, Minnesota. And so she remembers this dearly. I get caught at Hornbachers stealing turkey jerky. I was trying to watch my weight. So instead of like beef jerky, I got caught shoplifting turkey jerky. Bag boys apprehended me. They called the cops. I got put in the back of the cop car. I got handcuffed at 11 years old. They brought me down to the police station, and then they called my mom. And Betty Hatch has been gone for 21 years now, but she put the fear of God into me when she walked in. And she came back and she's like, you will go back and you will apologize to those places. So myself and my friend, we went back to Hornbachers and we had to apologize. I had confiscated a gold necklace for my 6th grade girlfriend from Ben Franklin. And so I had to go back to Ben Frank. Yeah, like Mr. T, she was.
The big, thick gold chain. Nothing says romance.
Oh,
like that.
I know. Oh, it was a hot, hot romance. And so I go back to Ben Franklin. They didn't even know I stole, right? Mm-hmm. And so I return that. I end up paying it all back to church of what I stole until my sister told my mom how much I had really stolen. And then like all hell broke loose. So let's fast forward now. I'm working
now you're a man of God.
I'm working at the church, worked at First Lutheran for 8 years post-college. And I'm a volunteer basketball coach as well. I'm coaching a 7th and 8th grade girls B squad. These are the nicest girls on earth, but they can't make a shot to save their life. Mm-hmm. And one of our girls, such a sweet gal, her name's Caitlin, is hearing impaired. So I'm having to learn sign language, and we have to run all of our plays, not with me shouting what to do, but we're developing hand signals and all these other things to help Caitlin. In the stands is her grandparents, Doug and Sally, watching. And they call me one day. I'm full-time at the church. I'm just getting started in real estate part-time. And they call me one day, and Doug says to me, Eric, you don't know me, but I'm Caitlin's grandpa, and I appreciate what you've done for her as a basketball coach. And so I'm wondering if you will help me buy a condo. And I'm like, yeah, man, for sure. I'd love to. He's like, young man, you didn't listen to me. He's like, I want to buy this condo. I don't even need to see it. I know all the details. And so I want you to have this commission. Well, Doug and Sally owned Ben Franklin. And that was the first deal that I ever did in real estate that gave me the confidence to go out on my own and to go into real estate full time, because Doug and Sally Larson believed in me and gave me a chance. And had it not been for my bad boy shoplifting days, which were constituted and lived by Little Caesars free breadsticks, I wouldn't be here today.
That's fantastic. Your questions coming up, or if you want to talk a Little Caesars, we can continue that in the final half hour. Keeping it real. Eric Hatch next.
News and weather this hour brought to you by Muscatel Pre-Owned. Muscatel's was voted #1 by localsloveus.com for good reason. So stop in today to Muscatel Pre-Owned, just off of Exit 1 in Moorhead.
Mostly cloudy, 12 degrees. I'm Paul Jurgens. Traffic deaths in North Dakota reached triple digits for the third straight year in 2021. 100 people died, following back-to-back years of 100 fatalities. Of those who died last year, 43 were not wearing seatbelts. Drinking was involved in 31 fatalities, and speed was a factor in 27 deaths. 8 motorcyclists and 9 pedestrians were killed in 2021. A Richland County patrol car was hit on I-29 south of Wahpeton late last night. The deputy inside was injured. The deputy was conducting a traffic stop on the southbound side of the road, but a pickup failed to move over and hit the patrol vehicle. The deputy had to be extricated from her patrol car. She was taken to Fargo for medical treatment. She suffered a broken arm. I-29 was shut down for a short period of time until vehicles could be moved. That collision remains under investigation by the Highway Patrol. Xcel Energy will pay a $4,500 fine because it missed the deadline for replacing wind turbine lights at the Courtney Wind Farm near Jamestown. The deadline to replace the blinking red lights with a radar-based system was December 31st. The utility asked for an extension from the Public Service Commission, which was denied. PSC Chair Julie Fedorchuk says the upgrade was more complicated than it seemed.
In probably a lot of respects, it's more complicated to retrofit than to bake it into your plans from day one.
There are 2 other wind farms that have not complied with the new lighting law. 12 degrees. This is KFGO News. "12 degrees, mostly cloudy. This is KFGO News. A recommendation to raise pay for Fargo substitute teachers in the school district failed last night on a 6-2 vote. The district, like other schools, continue to have a difficult time finding substitutes on a daily basis. Board member David Paulson introduced the motion that would increase daily pay to $200 for substitutes at elementary schools and $175 for middle and high school substitutes as a way to not only recruit more subs, but also to retain them. He called it an experiment for the rest of the school year and suggested that the board should see how it works.
If we continue to pay our substitute teachers $112 a day, in essence, what we are telling those people is that the job they are doing for us is no more important than the job of flipping burgers, because they're getting the same amount of pay. I consider our substitute teachers grossly underpaid.
Board member Jim Johnson says a study of current substitute pay is much in line with other school districts of similar size. Other board members also said the plan could create additional complications. Board President Rebecca Knudsen says further discussion is needed that includes paraprofessionals who provide instructional, behavioral, and other support to students in and outside of the classroom. U.S. Senator Amy Klobuchar is among a bipartisan group of lawmakers introducing the Homefront Energy Independence Act. It is designed to lower gas prices. The bill would make E85 fuel available year-round, establish a tax credit for E85 and biodiesel, and direct the Environmental Protection Agency to finalize its E15 labeling rule. Senators Joni Ernst and Chuck Grassley of Iowa are the lead Republican sponsors. The Washington Commanders have agreed to acquire former Bison quarterback Carson Wentz from the Indianapolis Colts. That deal could not be finalized until the start of the new league year next week. Washington would get the 47th pick in the draft along with Wentz, and sending Indianapolis draft numbers 42 and 73 this year, and a 2023 conditional third-round draft pick that can become a second round based on Wentz's playing time. Wentz has 3 years remaining on his contract. The 2016 second overall pick of the Philadelphia Eagles spent 1 season with Indianapolis. Wind chill advisory, 6 this evening until noon tomorrow, issued by the Weather Service at mid-afternoon. Fargo-Moorhead tonight, mostly clear. We're looking for a low of about 11 below zero. Sunny tomorrow morning, then increasing clouds by afternoon, 16. Friday, 9 for the high, partly to mostly cloudy, windy, chance of flurries. Low 20s, near 22 or so. Saturday, partly to mostly cloudy, windy. A little light snow is possible late in the day. 32, partly sunny. Sunday, Fargo-Moorhead, 12. Paul Jurgens News Radio, KFGO.
Just as the crew of It Takes Two was coming in getting free advice on buying or selling. In the real world or not. But.
JJ Gordon just asked, does a haunted house appreciate in value in this market? And I said, are you talking acres of terror? Or are you talking like where somebody died? And turns out he wanted to know if somebody died in the house, does it appreciate? And I said, yeah, I think it does.
Yeah, it does.
People looking for fixer-uppers all the time.
Plus, it adds character. It's a story to tell.
Yeah, I don't know if we've helped with any real estate advice, but we've talked about how I have a criminal record and haunted houses.
We've discovered also off air that any difficult time you had as a child of a certain age, it played out at some shape or form on Saved by the Bell as we grew up.
Absolutely, it did.
The whole turning green for cheap jewelry.
Yeah.
Fake IDs. We won't name any names of who was in possession of one of those.
But it sounds like Schmamey Schmeiler, right?
Sure. Eric Hatch, he's got another 23 minutes left. If you want real estate, real questions, send those in. We'll get to those the final half hour of Afternoons Live right after this. The air drums are being played in the KFGO studio. Eric Catch, it's Keeping It Real. Answering all your real estate questions and Saved by the Bell, criminal histories. It's all on the table today.
What a nice Wednesday.
Yeah, it's been an unusual day. I got in trouble on air on a different show. You're getting other people from that show in trouble in here. It's all coming together real nice here on
Full
Wednesday.
circle. It's why I'm going to Lenten service after this, is to try to just start anew.
Yeah. Right. I need to cleanse myself.
That's right.
Of what just happened on Afternoons Live. Let's talk real estate. Still a hot market out there.
Oh, it's so hot.
People that are looking, saying, you know what, I want to move, but I'm scared to sell because that means I've got to buy, and with how quick things are going. I mean, what's your advice for those that want to sell in this market?
That is the biggest problem that I see right now, is that everybody who is interested in selling is frozen because they say, I don't know what I'm going to do. Right. And we've been really intentional as a company of Hatch Realty to try to say, how are we going to tackle this? And I think that there's two options. The first is that you can actually sell before you buy, and we can buy you time. So what this is called a stop clause. Stands for subject to owner purchase. What a stop clause does is it means that, Tyler, if you wanted to put your house on the market today and we got it sold today, we'd still have that contingency. A contingency is like an extra hurdle or a domino that has to fall for everything else to happen. You'd have that contingency in place that says that you don't actually have to sell your house and consummate the deal and hand the keys over to the new buyer until you find and close on your next place. And so we can put your house on the market and get it sold, and then you can go and find your place and we can buy you that time. And if you don't ever find the place, you don't have to sell your house. So that's option number one. So those of you that are sitting thinking, man, I want to move, there's big opportunity, I'm sitting on a bunch of equity in my house. And get this, by the way, I have a buddy in Orange County, California, who's a realtor. Their houses are appreciating $25,000 on average a month because of inflation. Wow. Our homes here are appreciating almost $3,000 a month right now, which is crazy. You've lived in your place now 6 months?
Not November. November is when.
Okay, so quick math tells me that's 4 months. That's $12,000 on average that you've made $12,000 in the last 4 months. Hallelujah! There you go. There's a big win.
No wonder I'm getting those text messages.
That's right.
I just moved here. Anyway,
that's right.
Don't waste
now that's on one side of it, is you can sell before you buy. The other option is we can help you buy before you sell. And here's how it works. Tyler, if you are falling in love with a place and you're like, this is going to be the one, but I don't want to do a bridge loan. A bridge loan is when you not only have one mortgage, but you have two mortgages. That takes a serious amount of cash and that takes a big financial risk. And most people don't have either the gumption or the bank account in order to do that. And so you fall in love with this next place, but you're like, I can't get my house on the market and I'm going to lose this place. Well, we have the solution for you and you can buy before you sell. So what happens is you contact us and I'm going to give you an offer on your house that day. If your house is worth $300,000, I'm probably going to give you an offer about $270,000, like 10% off. No commissions or anything else. If I have to buy your house, and I don't want to buy your house, but if I have to buy your house, I'll give you $270,000. So now you're going to go and you're going to purchase your next place. You're going to get your offer accepted because you don't have that contingency, that extra hurdle that says I still need to sell, because you already have an accepted offer with me. And then we're just going to buy in some time. We're going to not have you close in like 30 or 45 days. We're going to have you close in 60 or 90 days. And then we're going to go back to your house and you're going to hustle and you're going to get it on the market. You're going to take a week or two and then you're going to put it on the market at $300,000. And sure enough, that house is going to sell 99 times out of 100 to a buyer who will pay more than I will. And you can cancel your purchase agreement with me at any time. I'm your safety net. I'm your catch-all. You don't have to worry that how am I going to ever make this happen because I got to sell my house. Like, I'm your backup offer, and nobody else is offering a backup offer, but we are, because right now people are stuck and we want to get them unstuck. And it's not going to cost you a dime. In fact, it's going to make you dimes. We just have strategies that work the system here so you can win.
And that's the thing. I mean, you're talking about all those contingencies, because that's the fear, at least that, we had it because of that hot market. It's because we had the second scenario you described. We were looking and we found the one. We walked there like, yep. But with
my wife said that when she saw me for the first time. She said,
"That's the one."
Yep, that's the one.
He looks like a bad boy. I've heard.
She has glaucoma, but I'm kidding. She doesn't. But yeah,
some of that nice Black Hills Gold jewelry, man.
Cause her eyesight to go all bad.
If you're just joining us, you'll have to listen to the Keeping It Real podcast to get the first part of that conversation.
That's right.
But that fear is, if we don't make an offer right now and our house isn't ready to go, what do you do? And you kind of get that paralyzed state of you either got to go all in and take a chance, or as you guys have these tools to where, look, there are other options to help you make this decision.
Yeah, we've helped listeners from KFGO who've listened to me talk about variations of this. They've called in immediately and being like, I'm struggling with this right now. And what do I do? And we got them an offer on their place. And sure enough, they had been trying for months in order to get an offer accepted, but they always had that contingency saying, I got to sell my house first. Yeah. And so I gave them an offer on their place that was acceptable to them. And then magically they got their next offer accepted. And then we put their house on the market. They just didn't want to put their house on the market until they knew that they had a place to go to. And we can solve that for you. And 99 times out of 100, it's going to be in your best interest financially. That one other time you're going to have to sell to me, but it's still agreeable terms. And the win is that you're getting in this new place with a great interest rate. And who doesn't want something new?
Yeah. That's especially after the last couple of years, which you've been probably trapped in that house longer than what you ever expected. I got to get a weather update from Too Tall Tom Schmassey. When we come back, I want to ask because when you buy, sell, the first thing you do when you're signing off is like, hey, you're going to get a lot of junk mail, a lot of spam.
Yeah.
There's a lot of that going on in text message form. There's people that have been wondering, is this legitimate? Should I be? So let's talk about that.
You bet.
Eric Hatch, Keeping It Real. It's the second Wednesday of the month. We'll wrap up with him right after this weather update from Too Tall Tom Schmassey. Stay with us. Time for your questions. If you want to send those into 35270, Consultants of North Dakota Text Club. For Eric Hatch is keeping it real. Before we sent everyone off to the weather, I had said, because, we, as you just pointed out, we've been in our new home for 4 months.
Mm-hmm.
I'm getting text messages as late as this week from random numbers saying, are you interested? And basically asking me about the old place.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's not any realty company that I can figure out here. I mean, I have no idea. They don't provide any information.
Mm-hmm.
How common is that? I imagine if somebody's going through that process, because you get spam mail all the time after you move or after you buy and sell. But the text thing is a little different beast for me here.
Yeah, understand how this all came to be is think back to when we used to get so much mail in our mailbox and 90% of it is junk. And it's still true today, right? 90% of it is junk. Now, most people are on like the Google or the Outlook platform. And when you're on those platforms, a lot of things go to promotions and to spam and to that sort. So we don't see most of the stuff that comes our way. Our phone feels personal though, doesn't it?
It does, yeah.
Like the text messages and the phone calls. We have been barraged with spam phone calls. Well, now it's spam text messages. Mm-hmm. And it's not unique to those who have just recently moved. There are, your number is out there somewhere. And these are sold on lists. And I mean, they're not be like, hey man, you got to talk to Tyler Axis. That guy's worth $5. So this is going to cost $5 worth. They're buying tens of thousands. And most of the time it's robots and artificial intelligence that is now messaging you. Once you respond, that triggers a human to then engage in the conversation. Mm-hmm. But if you have not opted in to that text message, full transparency, let's say you go to Zillow.com. Mm-hmm. And I hope you don't go to Zillow.com. I want you to go to HetchRealty.com. But let's say you go to Zillow.com. When you give them your information, you are also choosing to opt in to mass messaging. That means they can now legally send you mass text messages. When I say mass, it means that one text message goes to more than one person. It's the same text message. So if that's the situation and that's the backdrop that we find ourselves in, if you have opted in, it is a legal text. If these randos are now messaging you, not the artist rando, but random people, if they're now messaging you, that's a Fargo joke, by the way.
Yes.
If they, and a horrible one at that.
I was just going to let it roll right off, man.
If they're messaging you, that is technically an illegal move that they're doing. So if it is invasive, just simply reply stop or please remove me from your list. If you are curious about your home's value, I would encourage you to trust a local professional more than you would artificial intelligence that is spamming you.
Yeah, because, I mean, it didn't use name, but it used the address that had been connected to me for quite some time. I was a little bit more abrasive probably in the response instead of just stop. And it was words of which I cannot utter. It's a family-friendly show. You won't get all that
thanks for churching that up for us.
Yeah, there you go. I keep it clean. I'm keeping it real with Eric Hatch.
I see what you did there.
Yeah. What else before I let you go? I got a couple of minutes here before I let you get on up and get out of here.
I wanna frame this for you all because I think it's important. 2022 and real estate is going to feel like a pinch. If you're a buyer, it's exceedingly difficult right now for you to win. And I can't overemphasize how important getting great coaching and guidance is. I think that most people are in this microwave, I want it now generation. So they want to see the house and then make their decision. Mm-hmm. Those that are winning are doing consultations and strategy sessions far before they ever begin the game. You worked with Josh Boucher on my team.
I did.
And I know that Josh is wise enough to sit you down and to say, Tyler, here's what it's going to take for you to win today. Mm-hmm. Because otherwise you're setting yourself up for heartache and heartbreak, and it's really emotional. It's all logical until it becomes emotional. Now, for sellers, you're at an advantage. And I want to tell you, though, be very, very clear on this. It is somewhat easy to sell your house in this market. But to maximize the value and to minimize the headache is complicated. And so just because you can sell your house either at a discount or on your own, I want to heed warning. And I know you're thinking, Eric, you got a dog in the fight. You're trying to earn people's business. I don't care if you work with me or another great company in town, but do not go into a fight with a professional when you are an amateur. Although you may have great skills, this market is destroying even the best of realtors. And so because of that, Getting great guidance is imperative. We, of course, would love to interview for the job at Hatch Realty, brokered by Real. It would be an honor. If you're going another route, we're still going to cheer for you because we think there's enough pie to go around.
Eric, it's always fun, man. Let's do this again next month, all right?
I'll be here.
Keeping it real, Eric Hatch, every second Wednesday of the month. Easy for me to say. Folks, that's it for me today. I'm Tyler Axis, your host here on Afternoons Live. I will be back tomorrow for more of the show. Till then, you take care. I'll check in right here on KFGO.